Hello, everybody. This is ChasingCinema.com's official podcast. Thank you for joining us on our 134th episode. If you've never listened to our podcast before, well, then it seems like you are 134 episodes late, but that's okay. Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure to hit the subscribe button on iTunes so every week this show appears on your playlist without you having to do anything. It's also available on YouTube. You can find that at Chasing Cinema. Today, I am your host, Jacob Toronto, and I'm joined by a very reoccurring guest. For the first time ever in Chasing Cinema, we've had a guest reoccur like nobody's business because me and him get along so well, and because everybody just enjoys this man. He is the deputy managing editor and senior entertainment editor for the Guardian Liberty Voice. It's Michael Smith. Sir, welcome back for the second week in a row.
Thank you very much. And can I just say the aforementioned sentence? Just say that fast 3 times.
Yeah, it is
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
It is a tongue twister, but the man does a lot, and I always want to stretch that. And Michael has been on 3 times in the past, I believe, 2 months, and that's been more reoccurring than any other guest. But Michael is probably going to be a very reoccurring guest, as Louis is always busy and doing fun stuff at school and trying to be a doctor and all that nonsense. But Michael is someone who's constantly writing, and me and him are constantly just talking about film. So I know I know he's great for the podcast. I know me and him get along, so that's why we see Mike. But we enjoy it, and Mike, thank you so much for coming back on again.
No problem. Thanks for asking me back. I really have fun doing this. It's a good time.
Good. So we're going to hop right into it this week. Today, we are going to be talking about, as usual, what we've been watching this week. I'm going to talk about some Christmas favorites. Not too much, though, because I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot in the next coming week. Michael has some things to talk about. Constantine, something he was talking about last week, the television show. We're going to also talk about Graceland. Then we're going to take a turn. Instead of doing movie news, we're going to actually be going through the Golden Globe nominations that they have released for the year of 2014. The Golden Globes are going to be aired on January 11th, the 72nd, and it's going to, I believe, again, hosted by Amy Poehler and Tina Fey.
Yes.
So we're going to be going through those, and then we're going to close out this podcast by reviewing Top 5 in Exodus, Gods and Kings. Whew, another mouthful.
Yes.
Michael, let's talk about Constantine real quick. Last week you talked about that you enjoying this show and you're reviewing it. Me and you were talking about some things before we started recording. Tell us what's going on with Constantine right now.
Well, I just found out, and actually it's that sort of thing where I'm about a mile behind everyone else, obviously. I sat down to write the review for a 2-parter that's just come on. And I found out that NBC, in its infinite wisdom, have come down and told the makers of the program that they don't want any more than 13 episodes, which generally means that's pretty much the kiss of death for any show. Now, what's funny about this is literally the same day I read that, I also read with Zap to It, who do TV by the numbers, that these last few episodes of Constantine have done remarkably well. They've gotten like 25% more people watching it. The DVR numbers have shot through the roof. So it kind of looks, as we used to say in the Air Force when I was much, much younger, NBC have stepped all over their wee-wah by sitting there canceling the thing and possibly not bringing it back for a second season. Certainly looks that way. Mm-hmm. I wrote about that. The remarks I've gotten back, people are saying that they're not too overly pleased that they're cutting it. But it's that sort of thing where it took a little while to get its stride, but this is such a brilliant show. And it is – Matt Ryan does a fantastic job. He's completely natural as this comic book character exorcist, and it just really, really works well. And again, it's one of those few shows that actually uses a lot of what I call Brit speak. The only other one that's come close, and I just discovered this the other night on TNT, is Transporter, the series. Not really a huge fan, but as I was watching one episode, they actually came out with my favorite phrase, where 2 chaps are walking along the street. One asks another one a question. Does he know something? And the guy looks at Frank Martin, the transporter and says, "Don't know, mate. Haven't got a Scooby." And I went, "Oh my Lord! I've never heard anyone over here use this apart from me." So I was really quite excited.
That phrase, I'm gonna try to help you guys break that one down because as me and Michael first started talking, he was talking, he has this wonderful way of going back and forth sometimes. And sometimes he throws out slang like that. And I was like, wait a minute. What'd you say? And he explained to me what that meant. So that was one of the first things he ever taught me in our past couple months as becoming friends. Now, the term Scooby, and let me know if I'm wrong here. This is what Michael taught me, comes from Scooby-Doo. And what it means is, and obviously Scooby-Doo being a detective series, it means I don't have a clue, is what I don't have a Scooby means, correct?
Now, it is, but it's sort of like you've actually given much more importance than it really holds. It's that sort of thing where it's just rhyming slang, and it's a very modern version of it. So Scooby-Doo rhymes with clue.
Yeah.
And again, because it's Cockney slang, they don't do the whole thing. They only do part of it. So it's like, haven't got a Scooby means literally, I haven't got a Scooby-Doo, I haven't got a clue.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay, like things, all right, yeah.
Yeah, it's all rhyming stuff. It's like Dog and Bone is phone, Trouble and Strife is wife, Butcher's Hook is look. So again, it's that sort of thing. If you've ever watched EastEnders, they used to do it quite a lot. They've toned it down, I think, quite a bit now. But back in the days when it first started, someone would say, "Oh, you want to have a butcher's at that over there," which again means Butcher's Hook, which means you want to have a look at that over there. So yeah, it's one of those things that you tend to hold on to or you pick up. And
that's because their viewers were probably so busy pausing and Googling what those things meant, which I'm guilty for, especially with the in-betweeners. Like I said, I mentioned before, like a fruity. I never knew what that was. That was really interesting. So I've been learning a lot. Now, so Constantine looks like it might be in trouble, but I want to get your opinion about another film or another TV show that we've talked about a pretty decent amount, which I believe came to a season finale recently, and that's Grace Point. Micah, tell us about Grace Point and the origin of Grace Point, or the other version at least.
Right, yeah, the original source material. Grace Point started out life as an ITV, which is Independent Television Network, United Kingdom program called Broadchurch. And it's this very quintessentially, which I just mispronounced horrifically, but it's one of these typical English seaside mystery type things. It's sans Miss Marple or Hercule Poirot or whatever Agatha Christie character you prefer. It's basically a young lad is found dead on the seaside, which we don't say in this country. We actually say beach. They don't say beach in England. If you say beach in England, they're going to take the piss out of you unmercifully and make fun of you forever if you say that. It's always the seaside. So they find this.
You're always learning things on JasonCinema.com's podcast, because now I know if I ever go, I'll make sure to say seaside, not beach. Lesson learned.
Yes, they will absolutely take the mickey out of you unmercifully if you say beach. They find this lad's body. He's about 11 in the UK, and they find his dead body on the seaside, or at the seaside. And in the investigation, they try and track down who in this little tiny seaside village has murdered this young lad. They took it over, brought it, the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. They brought the whole thing over to the US about a year after it finished in the UK, and brought it out on Fox. Now, Fox have done this thing where they've transferred everything to, this American beach where they find and changed quite a few things because the whole show was very, very English. But for all intents and purposes, apart from minor changes, like, for example, one of the suspects in Broadchurch was a newsagent. We don't have newsagents in this country. Basically, that's a place where it's sort of like a mom and pop shop, where you've got newspapers, magazines, convenience things to get, whatever. And the newspapers are delivered by newsboys and newsgirls now. That's something that started happening in the last 10 years or so. And they get up very early in the morning, they collect the newspapers, and they go on their bicycles, and they deliver the papers locally. And in Broadchurch, the lad was a newsboy or a paper boy, that worked for this newsagent. We haven't got them in this country, so when they came out with That Suspect here, he was a kayak or a canoe rental chap. So, yeah, a few things were changed, but nothing really dramatic. And most of the show followed it faithfully. I did have people come in and argue with me and say, no, there are huge differences, and that is, pardon my French, a load of bollocks, which, is English for balls. It was the same show right up until the season finale. Now, in England, a nice terse little tale. It finished after, I think, 8 episodes. We over here decided to drag it out an additional 2 episodes, presumably so they could add this last-minute little twist to change who the killer really was. Now, before that, I made fun of, and still do, Fox's marketing campaign was suspect everyone. And it's like, okay, fine. We're going to treat this sort of like, and I can't remember which country it is. In England, there's a game that you play called Clue. In this country, I think we call it Cluedo. Is that right?
Well, I know Clue. I don't know Cluedo. I mean, that might be a game.
It's the opposite then. I've gotten it completely opposite. Clue, I think, is
are you talking about the game where you have 6 people who you're trying to solve a murder?
Yes.
Yeah, in America, in this country, in America, we call that Clue.
Okay, in England, it's called Cluedo. There we go.
Okay.
Now you know what it was like for me living in England. I would continually get things messed up. So yeah, they sort of have turned it into a Fox version of Cluedo. So, you could say Colonel Mustard on the seaside, with a wrench, whatever, that sort of thing. And because of this marketing thing where you could go by the website and vote on who you thought killed Danny, it was this sort of like big thing. Total rubbish. And like I say, I held on and finally watched the season finale. And yes, they changed it a little tiny bit at the end to give this little twist. And I'm like, really? Seriously? We're doing this? Really?
And I believe part of the article's title is Seriously.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And remember, guys, you could always go read all of Michael's reviews at mikesfilmtalk.com. Make sure to follow him on Twitter because he tweets all that fun stuff out at Mike's Film Talk. So was Broadchurch just a one-season show, or did it continue to have different with these detectives?
It's actually been brought back. Somebody left a huge comment on my article giving their viewpoint. They actually thought it made a lot of sense what they did in Fox, which immediately negates them as having any sort of common sense factor whatsoever in anything else that they said in the comment. But they did mention that because ITV had sold the rights to Fox, it enabled them to come up with the money to come out with a second season, which again doesn't make any sense because ITV relies upon advertisers just like most channels do in this country. Yeah. The only people that do not rely upon advertisers are BBC. You pay a TV license, which is this exorbitant fee to get to watch television. And even if you live in the UK and never watch the BBC, you still have to pay the bloody license. So
very interesting.
Yeah, and very expensive and very annoying. But having said that, on the BBC, you don't have to watch commercials. You get to watch a program all the way through. And that's films and everything. So it kind of evens itself out. Yeah.
I remember you explained that to me too when I asked, because when I watched In Betweeners, I was like, this was on television? Jeez. Yeah. It's very raunchy in learning about that. But again, go read Michael's full review to get more detail out of his review of the finale of Grace Point, and that is on mikesfilmtalk.com. Really quick, I just want to ask you a question, Michael. What is your favorite Christmas movie to watch at this time of year?
Wow. I'm trying to think what I used to. I mean, years ago, I used to always watch around Thanksgiving. I always watched The Wizard of Oz because that always came out. I think quite possibly my eternal favorite, and I still watch it whenever I can find it. I went to get the DVD, but it was so exorbitantly priced, I didn't. I just watch it on TV now. And that's It's a Wonderful Life with James Stewart. And that is never fails to make me cry. 56 years old, and if I watched it right now, I would be flooding tears through the whole thing at the finale. That probably is my favorite ever Christmas film.
Well, I'd have to agree with you, but when people ask me that question, because I consider It's a Wonderful Life my favorite film of all time.
Yeah.
Just my number one. I usually don't always say that I don't always say that my favorite Christmas movie because I classify it way more than just a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And recently, just to quickly say what I've been watching lately, my girlfriend, Samantha, I've talked about many times on the show, is an amazing person, but really, really lacked any film education. So I have taken upon myself to be her mentor in this life of watching movies. And I have so far made her sit down and watch 8 Crazy Nights, which was an Adam Sandler animated film, which not many people enjoyed. For some reason, I really get a kick out of that movie. It is one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies. So, I got her down to sit and watch that. And Jingle All the Way, which I think is also a movie that not many people like, but I absolutely adore because I
love that film. Sorry, I'm glad you mentioned that because in terms of modern films, I do absolutely adore that film. And right up until I came over here, I had a copy of it and would watch it every Christmas.
Yeah.
It's one of the few times I've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger do comedy that he actually really sold me. Yeah.
I mean, she's really getting a kick out of that. I am a huge Sinbad fan. I think Sinbad is a genius comedian. Arnold is great in that movie, but Sinbad kills it in that movie. There's still a lot we have to show her. She has seen the Home Alones, but I always watch those.
Yeah,
the Santa Claus is another very, very favorite of mine with Tim Allen.
Yeah.
So I've just been busy watching Christmas movies, as well as all the movies that we're going to be talking about later in this podcast. So I just wanted to update you guys with that one.
That's great. Can I just say really quickly, the late Phil Hartman as the neighbor in Jingle All the Way is just absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Phil Hartman is so hilarious in that movie and just not even subtle. He's the most just outrageous. He's a great portion of that film and he's awesome. Great movie. If you've never seen it, I really, really recommend it. I do know that they are making a sequel. They already made a sequel that's coming out, and it's actually starring Larry the Cable Guy and wrestler, our former wrestler because he retired of an injury, Santino Marella. I have not seen it. I don't know what the plot is about. I don't know if it's going to be similar because it doesn't really make sense so much nowadays because we're in the age of the internet. There's no such thing as going to a store and being sold out anymore because we have the web. So I'm really interested to see that, even though I'm sure it won't be nearly as good as the first film. No, but you let us know what you'll be watching this holiday season. Tweet us at Chasing Cinema and tell us what you're going to be watching for the holiday season.
All I can hear now in my head is Arnold Schwarzenegger going, "Shut up, Boomer! No one likes you."
Great movie. Absolutely hilarious. So as we are exiting December, that means we are entering award season. That means that the golden statues of all types and sorts are going to be given out. And the first stop to award season is the Hollywood Foreign Press Association's Golden Globe Awards, which will be again airing on January 11th. So I wanted to read off the nominations that have recently came out, I believe actually this week, if not at the end of last week. We're not going to do predictions per se. We usually do that the week before, and we'll talk about who we're predicting. Also, because we really can't talk about certain movies very detailed. We can't really go into like a review. We'll talk about what we think and just an overall overview of what's been getting nominated. So there are 14 film categories, I believe, in this year's Golden Globes, and the first one is Best Original Song, and that is going to be out of Big Eyes by Lana Del Rey for the movie Big Eyes. We have Glory for Selma. Mercy Is from Noah.
Sorry.
Opportunity from Annie, and Yellow Flicker Beat from The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. So I'm sure, even though I've looked over this, I'm pretty sure this is the only Golden Globe that Noah's been nominated for.
Yes.
But did you like Noah? You chuckled. So let's talk about that. Did you like Noah?
It was all right. It was enjoyable. It was epic. I know I said in my review that and I think I actually said it on the day, it felt like Ridley Scott does David Lean, It was like his Lawrence of Arabia, his Noah of Canaan, on screen. So it was epic in a lot of different ways. The thing I thought quite funny was of all the films we've seen this year, and we've seen loads this year, the fact that the only thing they could think to nominate Noah for Best Song, I'm like, that just really, in Brit speak, that creases me up. It really does. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's sort of like a backhanded insult. Okay, Ridley, we like the fact that you made a Bible epic, but we're going to really diss you big time, award time, and nominate you for Best Song. Yeah.
Well, really quick, we're going to be talking about Ridley Scott's epic Bible pick today at the end of this podcast, Exodus. But remember that Noah was directed by Darren Aronofsky.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
No. But I know I had the same confusion because I was like, they did do both, right? So, but I'm sure Noah's going to be coming up later because I really, really enjoyed Darren Aronofsky's picture, and I think it's a good comparison to Ridley Scott's new film. Moving on, we have Best Score. We have, I don't want to, I'm not even going to try with some of these names, so I'm just going to name the pictures that are nominated. We have The Imitation Game. We have The Theory of Everything. We have Gone Girl. We have Birdman, and the ever so famous, the one that most people are going to know, Hans Zimmer, for his film Interstellar. Now, it's really nice to see a bunch of new names on this list and not the most common. Did you have any scores that really stood out to you this year?
Interestingly enough, the score of Gone Girl was really, really good.
Yes, it was. I agree.
Yeah, that to me really fit everything, and it really helped make the film move and feel, vibrant. I mean, it really was one of those where it fit perfectly in my mind.
And I have to agree with you. I think all of these are pretty, really good. Though I do not think that I am a favor of the Hans Zimmer score for Interstellar, though I am a fan of Hans Zimmer in general, and I would argue that most movie people are because he has done so much. But to really quick, let's talk about Interstellar and the fact that I believe this is their only nomination at the Golden Globes as well, and a lot of people are quite upset that this movie has been left off so many, has quote-unquote been snubbed by the Academy. Do you feel that this movie was snubbed, or do you think it was rightfully done?
No, I think they're snubbing it for whatever reason. I really enjoyed Interstellar. I thought it was a brilliant film. Okay, yeah, it had plot holes you could drive a bus through, but the point was it was an entertaining film. Mm-hmm. And it just really, it impressed me loads, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm really quite surprised that it has been looked at that way. But having said that, the Academy has a long history of really wanting to push message films.
Yes.
They like films that really have this underlying message. They don't like films that just entertain. They really don't. They never have done. It's like the old story, Spielberg couldn't get a look in with the Academy until he made Schindler's List. Yeah.
Well, the Academy, and the fact that it's the Hollywood Foreign Press is doing the Golden Globes and they haven't nominated Interstellar, that really, because this would be the time Interstellar would be celebrated, because as I agree with you about your comment about the Academy, it's not going to be looking, if it's not nominated here, it's probably not looking very good for the Academy Awards, which will be probably getting our nominations somewhere in January, I believe. It's where we usually get our nominations for that.
Yeah, but I agree with you 100%. If it's going to get a gong at the Academy Awards, it's going to get noticed here first.
Yeah.
Golden Globes is always the first step, and if people get excited about it at the Globes, it's going to get at least a nod and a wink at the Academy Awards. And if this is the only one, this is bad.
But we'll also be the first to tell you, Mike will agree, I'm sure, that Golden Globes also tends to be a lot more lenient in its choices, and tends to be not so much the hard-hitting dramas, but also kind of movies that are very, very popular, and they're it's much more a broad spectrum. Not saying that I think the Academy is very choosy, but if you look at the list of for instance, the Golden Globe nominated, I believe what was the film with Johnny Depp and Angelina Jolie that I was surprised that even got nominated? I can't remember the film off the top of my head, but they did a movie together, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. And I was shocked at
I know the film you mean, and I can't think of the name of it for the life of me either, but I know exactly the one you mean.
Yeah, and I was surprised that that movie was nominated, and, you know, that movie, I don't know, The Tourist, it was called.
That's it, yes,
That's right,
thank
The
you.
Tourist. Yeah. And so, I mean, they are very more open. But this year, after looking at this list, they look like they're a little bit more cracking down and looking a little bit more resemblant to the actual Academy.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Now, the next one is always a very, very entertaining thing to look at. We have Best Screenplay, and we have Wes Anderson for The Grand Budapest Hotel. We have Gillian Flynn for Gone Girl. We have Birdman with a few names that are very, very tough to pronounce. We have Richard Linklater for Boyhood and Graham Moore for The Imitation Game. Now, I've seen all these films except Grand Budapest Hotel. Did you see that, Michael?
No, I didn't see that one. That was one of those time periods where for some reason our paper wasn't getting invites to anything. Okay. And it was one of those I wanted to see, but it felt sort of like a lot of other films where they've gone to the cream of British character actors and brought them all together for an ensemble piece. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head. My daughter absolutely adored it.
Best Marigold Hotel, I believe it.
Yeah.
With Judi Dench and
yes,
yes,
and it's like we've done this before. I'm not really all that particularly bothered. I now look at the trailers for it, and in fact, I think they're doing a sequel to it.
They might be. Oh, the Marigold Hotel, yes, they are.
Yeah, but not this one. So it's like, perhaps it wasn't quite the same. So I probably should look it up and watch it.
Yeah, which I'm sure we will before. This is always the fact that they give us some time. It's like, okay, here, if you haven't seen it yet, go out and watch the movies.
Yeah.
And I know that'll become a big thing when we hit the documentary and foreign film nominations. But are you usually a fan of Wes Anderson's work, or how do you gel with Wes Anderson?
I actually like Wes Anderson because he's one of these people that continually steps way outside the box. And I love that in his work. I love what he brings to the table. Don't always necessarily absolutely adore the film, but I love the fact that he does something different each and every time he brings something out. And because of that, I'm a fan.
I think Wes Anderson is a very talented filmmaker and a wonderful, technically, filmmaker. But the problem, most critics will always tell you that they look at specific things different. Some critics, certain things matter more than others. There are critics who could sit and have a 4-hour conversation about the effects and, camera use in one film, and another would talk to you just about performances. One of the main things that I really, really concentrate on are connections that I have with the movie. Does it hit me emotionally? Is the movie that I'll want to share with people? Does it affect me emotionally? And, though I appreciate looking at his looking at his films for some time. His movies very rarely strike me on an emotional chord. So I've never been the biggest Wes Anderson fan, though I respect his work. The one film that actually stands above the rest is The Fantastic Mr. Fox. And that was a film I absolutely loved. I thought it was a very, very well-made film. I thought it was very funny. But, it's not one of his most popular ones, where I remember... Again, I don't know if it was... I believe it was the same year that Django was nominated. So that was last year, which was Moonrise Kingdom. And that was a film that I was not a fan of. I was really... I watched that movie in the height of its popularity, and I was just like, I must be the only one here.
That's funny, because it is that sort of thing where I don't particularly love, again, like I said, I don't really particularly love his films. I think the only film I've ever seen his that I absolutely adored from minute one was The Royal Tenenbaums. Mm-hmm. I loved that film. I just thought it was fantastic. Great ensemble piece, just really, really brilliant. But again, I guess probably I shouldn't say I love his stuff. I should say what you just said, which makes a lot more sense. I respect his visions. I respect what he tries to bring to the table, because he does do something that is slightly out of step with everyone else.
Yes.
And I love people that strive so hard to be that original. Sometimes perhaps he strives a bit too hard, but it's that sort of thing where I still admire the effort that he puts into it. And I did really, really love the Royal Tenenbaums. I thought that was excellent.
It might be a real stretch, but in a way, Wes Anderson is very much like Tim Burton in that they're very designed and stylish with their look, though Tim Burton is very gritty and dark, where Wes Anderson is very clean and cut and crisp.
Yes.
But also having this feeling of kind of satire in their work, but yeah, and it has to go beyond that for me. And Wes Anderson hasn't yet really connected me as an audience, but hey, he has an audience very much large enough where he doesn't need me to be on the bandwagon.
Yeah, people that love Wes Anderson are wildly devoted to him.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Next, we have one of the most important awards of the night, and that is Best Director. So this is going to be interesting to converse because there was a lot of people that were really shocked that some people didn't make the list. Now, we have the Grand Budapest Hotel for Wes Anderson. We have Ava DuVernay, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, for Selma. DuVernay.
Yeah.
David Fincher for Gone Girl. All right, I'll try this one. Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu for Birdman, and then Richard Linklater. Yeah, that's a tough category, and only being able to put 5 of these, and we've seen some incredible stuff this year, and stuff we really, again, I said we can't really go into because, we try to hold our reviews for when movies are coming out. But wow, I mean, this is a very interesting mix.
Very much so, yeah.
We have movies from the whole entire year rather than a lineup of all these movies coming out at once. We had Boyhood, which I believe came into Vegas. I mean, I believe it's already on DVD and Blu-ray now. I believe you could purchase it, which came out early in the year. We have Grand Budapest Hotel, which also came out quite early in the year.
Yeah.
Gone Girl was about a few months back, kind of in the middle point. And then we have Selma and Birdman, were kind of later, though Birdman was a bit earlier. Selma won't be hitting Las Vegas, unfortunately, till January.
Yeah.
But if you're anywhere else, chances are you'll see Selma around Christmas. Wow. It's going to be a tough one. I think that this is a very interesting category. Michael, do you have any comments on that, or anyone that you think that should have been nominated?
Gosh, I've got at least 2 others that I could think of that should be in that list, but I won't go that road. What I will say, and again, it's that thing. I would not be surprised at all to see David Fincher pull it for the Golden Globes, and Ava DuVernay to get it for the Academy Awards, if indeed it does follow on that she does get the nod for it.
Yes. Which is something we have to think about, I mean, out of the, I believe, I actually wrote a whole thing about this, out of the 86 awards that have been given out for director, only one has ever gone to a woman, and that was only a few years ago.
And that was Hurt Locker.
Yes, and that was Catherine Bigelow's Hurt Locker. 3 other have been nominated. In that span of 80 some odd years, but only, so I mean, that's a pretty big statement. But Ava would also be the first Black woman to win Best Director, and one of the few. I mean, unfortunately, though I don't think it's slated that way, but also race is also. I mean, whites predominantly win these awards too. So Ava would be a real, pretty amazing nomination to have of a woman of color to be nominated for that. But we also have Richard Linklater, who seems to be kind of the not dark horse, but the favorite going into this with his work over a 12-year picture on Boyhood. Though a lot of people are upset that another woman wasn't nominated, and that was Angelina Jolie for Unbroken, as well as Clint Eastwood for American Sniper. Though I can't really comment on either of those because I've not seen either film yet.
No, not me either. But I think we're seeing Unbroken next week, aren't we?
Yes, we are. But I think it is quite shocking that those two names, who have had a lot of publicity around, aren't at all really mentioned in these awards. So very interesting.
I wonder if it has something to do, because I've always been under the impression that the Golden Globes actually had a wider time frame than what the Academy Awards does for things that they will include.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if that's perhaps they may actually look at, and again, this is going by when they're opening here in Vegas and the fact that we're seeing them so late in the year. I wonder if they won't get nudged over into the next year's.
Next year's, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Because as we were already saying, I believe Selma won't be hitting Las Vegas until January, as well as, no, what was the other one that's going to be in January that we were talking about? I know one that I don't know. We haven't mentioned it, but I know one for sure we won't be seeing. Oh, American Sniper won't also be here until January.
Yep, till January.
And more importantly, one that has gotten a lot of award attention, A Most Violent Year,
yes.
The new film with Oscar Isaac. And well, yeah, that won't be out until January, but it's going to be in a lot of other places. So, unfortunately, we're at a little bit of a disadvantage here. Moving on, we have Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role, and we have Robert Duvall for The Judge. We have Ethan Hawke for Boyhood. We have Edward Norton for Birdman, Mark Ruffalo for Foxcatcher, and J.K. Simmons for Whiplash. Now, you know, though I thought the movie was all right, I mean, I cannot not mention that I think that the Robert Duvall nomination is probably the most shocking I've seen on here. I mean, that to me just seems out of place. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to the man. He is an incredible artist. But his performance, I think, was very, very below average compared to the amazing, you know, list of Academy-worthy performances I've seen throughout the year, and especially one that I'd like to name is Selma, who had a lot of supporting roles and a lot of people that could have been nominated. So that, to me, is really, really interesting that his name made this list. But
especially since, because I agree with you, I think his performance in that film was a by-the-numbers performance.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing that we've not seen Duvall do before.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, it wasn't Duvall's best either, you know.
No, it wasn't. No, by the numbers. It was literally, he could have phoned that one in. Really, literally.
So I think that is a very, very interesting choice. And I think that's what I mean, though, when I say that Golden Globes tends to be a little bit more lenient in how this one, which, well, even though it didn't really do very well, financially speaking, critically speaking, to kind of end up on this list was quite shocking to me.
Very surprising. But again, it's that sort of thing. And I know we've talked about this before. J.K. Simmons is Best Supporting Actor in Whiplash.
Yes, even though I'm at a disadvantage because I've actually missed Whiplash. There is quite the controversy. Sorry, I was trying to grasp that word. That J.K. Simmons that shouldn't necessarily be the supporting role as much as it is the lead. Though we have talked and we think that because of the caliber of the Best Actor, category, it's probably a safer bet to put him in there.
Yeah, and then it's that combination because again we've talked about this before. It's a combination of what the studios were pushing for. You know, if they're afraid, and I can't think of the lad's name that I can see his face in my head. I'm getting that old man moment where I can see the lad that plays opposite him in Whiplash.
Miles Teller.
That's it. Yeah, Miles Teller is the favorite from the studio to be Best Actor. I mean, they want him to get the gong for that. Simmons, he's an older character actor. He's been around the business for a while. Rather than go for the sentimental vote and say, let's give the chap a shot. I mean, this is Juno's dad. Why don't we give him a shot at it? But no, they go for Best Supporting Actor instead. And it's like, okay, yeah, they obviously didn't want to jinx the whole thing by having two actors going up for the same award in the same film.
Absolutely. And you've seen Whiplash. And Whiplash has been out in Vegas, I believe, already.
I think it has been, yeah.
So, did you publish your review already for it?
I can't honestly tell you that looking at my my calendar, but it seems to me like I have.
Okay, I believe so.
Yes, I did so. Okay. Yeah, it has come out. It has come out.
And you were pretty favorable towards the films because I didn't want to talk about a movie we can't really talk about, but you were favorable to that movie, and you thought it was a very, very wonderful movie.
I thought it was a very powerful film, a disturbing film, an intense film, and one that just really, really surprised me. I didn't think I was going to like it. I walked in there thinking this is going to be boring as oh Harry. I'm not going to enjoy it at all. And it was actually incredibly intense and disturbing and unsettling. And the end of it just to use a phrase from the old country, I was gobsmacked at the ending. Yep. I just sat there going, wow. Yeah. And it was brilliant. Yeah. The only problem with Whiplash is I don't think it's really going to find an audience.
And why is that?
it's more of an intellectual type film. I believe it's something that relies on the subtleties of psychological interaction with people, a huge amount of passive aggression and downright aggression. It's a story that doesn't have all the things that people really look for, although it is an awful lot of reliance on intensity and pressure and stress. And it shows really honestly what the entertainment business is like backstage. You know, it's sort of along the lines of we mentioned him earlier, Darren Aronofsky's The Black Swan.
Yes.
It shows you all the work that goes into these masterful, performances by, in the case of the first one, ballet, and in the case of this one, musicians. It's not fun. It's not a kick. It's not a charge. It's bloody hard work. And that's what the film shows. It shows really the ugly side of being in the professional music business. And it does it really, really well. But again, because it lacks so many things, I don't think it's really ever going to find an audience. I don't think box office wise it did that well, and I don't think it ever will recoup that much, even in DVD sales.
This is one I'm going to have to track down so I can make sure I end up seeing, because I've heard a lot of great things.
It is brilliant.
Moving on, we have Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role. And we have Meryl Streep in Into the Woods. We have Emma Stone in Birdman. We have Keira Knightley in The Imitation Game. We have Jessica Chastain in A Most Violent Year. And we have Patricia Arquette in Boyhood. Now, again, we have a very just odd one thrown in there. And Meryl Streep Into the Woods. I think, though this movie, will be coming out in Christmas, and me and Mike really can't talk very much about it, I will say that this is just the same as a Robert Duvall nomination.
Yes.
It is just very, very odd, and doesn't seem like it belongs in this, and I feel like they could have found another actress very, very easily to put in the spot that might have been a little bit more. Granted,
and another one that doesn't fit in there either. Sorry, but I've got to say this, because the minute you said it, I was like, what? Keira Knightley in The Imitation Game. What? Because
she was supporting, or because you just don't think she was very good in it?
She was all right. But, I mean, it's like literally she doesn't have a whole lot to do in the film.
Mm-hmm.
She's not, and again, this is just my own personal opinion and not necessarily that of the management, as they say, but it's that sort of thing where she's not on screen very much at all.
I think to go back to Meryl Streep really quick, I thought she was good, and granted, I bow to that woman's feet. I think she's one of the best actors of all time, period. I mean, including male or female. She is that amazing, and but to address Keira Knightley, I think, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier when it goes to message and theme type thing.
Yeah.
Was she nominated more because of her performance, though I thought was really good?
Yeah.
It was very hard to kind of outshine one of the best performances of the year in The Imitation Game.
Yeah.
But was it also because she was a woman standing up for the fact that she could do things that the whole world seemed to think that she couldn't? You can only be a clerk. You can't be. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that might have a good thing to do with it. So yeah, another interesting little take. This is one that I've had a lot of trouble kind of thinking about. Me and Mike were actually talking about this the other day, about who we think might be a good supporting actress, and to kind of let the rabbit out of the hat, as they'd say, is I honestly think that Patricia Arquette gave a phenomenal performance in Boyhood, and
which I have not seen yet. So
which you've not seen yet, but you will be watching, I'm sure, in the next day or two.
Yes, I will.
Was just incredible, and I think that, in my opinion, just to give you a little taste of when we're talking about our predictions, I think Patricia Arquette might be taking that one. Though a lot of people seem to think Jessica Chastain might give her a run for the money.
I believe, that she will give her a fairly good run. She impressed me mightily in a film that didn't impress me at all, and that was The Most Violent Year.
Yes.
But going back, and I'm sorry, I'm going to pick on this again, Meryl Streep, because you mentioned it, and I felt this when I watched the film in the cinema. I felt this when I watched it again the other day. Her casting in Into the Woods reeked of, we're going to showcase you, Meryl, darling, so that you come across really, really well. You did such a lovely job in What's It's Where She Sang before.
Mamma Mia?
That's it. Yeah, thank you very much, Mamma Mia. So it's like, we're going to give you a part where you can show those pipes off again. And if you remember correctly, in the film, when she's singing, she is the one person in the entire film that actually gets to sing, and she also gets to belt.
Yes.
And you can see her gear down, and you see the music ramp up, so she gives that chance to really give it that belt. And I'm like, okay, now you're trying to stretch. Now you're showing off. And it's like, nah, sorry.
Which is interesting because she met similar criticisms last year with a film that basically everyone just dubbed as a movie. Everyone was begging for an Oscar, and that was in August, Osage County,
Yes.
which a movie that I actually enjoyed. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was incredible, but I mean, it was a movie that met constant criticism of them just saying they put an Oscar on the table and let them fight over it, type deal, and. But I mean, I enjoyed Meryl Streep in Into the Woods. Not to get too much detail, I think she was great. But again, it's this nomination, in my opinion, did not belong to her. Though I just think people expect to see Meryl Streep now in nominations, so they're just like, oh, well, I'll put her in there. She must be in her contract.
I was just going to say, I honestly think it's in her contract. Before she signs anything to say I'm going to do a film, it's like, Oscar nomination, Golden Globes. Do I get those? Okay, yeah, I'll take the part.
Because I honestly don't know the last time I've watched an award show and not seen Meryl Streep nominated for something. She's had like the most nominations out of everyone, I believe. When speaking of the Academy Awards, at least, I'm not sure the number, but I'm pretty sure she is one of the few people that have been nominated more than anyone.
Her name does get trotted out a lot. Yes.
Yeah. The next two are very, very interesting in one of my favorite categories. Not this one, but the next one. We have Best Foreign Language Film. Unfortunately, that's one that's very kind of tough to watch, even for us, for people who, go to screeners and see things early. I mean, it's something that we don't always get access to when we'd like. And so I'm just going to kind of read these off and talk about one in particular. We have Force Majeure Tourist from Sweden. We have Get, The Trial of Vivian Amisal Get from Israel. We have Ida from Poland / Denmark. We have Leviathan from Russia.
Leviathan, yes.
Leviathan. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And then we have Tangerine's Mandarin from Estonia. So I've not seen any of these pictures.
No, I haven't either.
But if you guys recall earlier to this year, about the midway mark through the year, we had Josh Bell on the podcast, and Josh Bell told us one of his favorite films that he saw so far this year was Ida, which is available on Netflix to anyone who's listening, and is a movie that I'm very, very interested in seeing. And though I told him I was going to watch it, I still haven't watched it. So hopefully I will get to it very soon. But that film is called Ida, so that's the only one I really know anything about. Mike, do you have any comments on these, or no, just because we haven't seen anything?
I was just going to mention, apropos to nothing, one of the things that this country seems to really be lacking on is a proper forum to see foreign language films.
Oh, absolutely. It's
even
scary.
In the UK, although I know it was really, really annoying. I remember getting very, very excited, and this wasn't like something that would ever go up for an award, but one of the Grudge films, the second one, was being released in cinemas in the UK, and my daughter and I got very, very excited because these weren't the remakes; these were the original Japanese. So we waited with bated breath to see where it was going to go, and they did get released in major cities, although like Birmingham, Manchester, London. So we were miles away from anywhere we could actually get a chance to see it. Although there were places locally that you could see foreign films. The Corn Exchanges, which are like local cinemas that deal with like art house films, etc., you could all see those there. Over here, I've not seen one advertisement for a foreign language film anywhere. And if you do find one, you find one by accident. We were talking earlier today about, or was it yesterday, about Hide and Seek, this brilliant South Korean film that was released this year. I stumbled across it. And it's like there are loads of foreign language films that are released that you never get a chance to see. And I'm sure there's audience for it. And the other thing that surprises me, again, apropos to nothing, I'm amazed that there are no Asian films in there.
Yeah.
South Korea makes some of the best films in the world. Okay, I say this because I'm an absolute nut about South Korean films, but I think they absolutely rule it. And I will say I'm not surprised to see that there is a Russian film in there, because they do absolutely knock it out of the park quite a lot as well. But no one's ever going to know. Although I do know that most people don't like subtitled films. But the point of it is no one's ever going to know, because there's no place to watch the bleeding things anywhere.
Maybe, it might sound shocking if you do not live in the Las Vegas area, that we do not really have any art house theaters. We really don't have that kind of forum to watch these things. The only theater that I know that actually does foreign films on occasion, and maybe for a week or so, is the Regal Village Voice. I'm sorry, not the Regal Village. Lost my train of thought. The Regal Village Square Theater. I actually had to go there to see a film last year I talked about and really enjoyed. That was a foreign film called Wajida, and it was directed out of a woman out of Saudi Arabia, and which let alone was mind blowing that she was able to do that, and she had to direct people from vans. Incredible story, a movie that I loved, but it was only there for a day or two, and I had to go see it there, and not that I mind, but there are so many films that we're still missing. Luckily we have things like Netflix and like that to depend on, but sometimes we don't get these in time, which is quite annoying.
Yeah.
Now, my one of my favorite categories of any award show, one of my favorite categories that absolutely just amaze me, though it is usually dominated by one company, we have Best Animated Feature Film. This is a very interesting list because it's going to be quite a tough year. We have Big Hero 6, which was Disney. We have The Book of Life. We have The Box Trolls. We have How to Train Your Dragon 2. And then we have the Lego Movie. We've seen all of these. I know the only one that I really didn't like was The Box Trolls. Mike, we talked about this.
Yes.
Look at either. Now, the rest I enjoyed very, very much. Though I think I know, it seems one is getting the love and appreciation. The one that will probably take it home would be the Lego Movie. Though I think that there are two other films that I absolutely love tenfold more. Though I think the Lego Movie is also great. What did you think about the Lego Movie?
I have not seen the Lego Movie.
Oh no, really?
I haven't seen it. And I also didn't see, because I remember somebody else talking about How to Train Your Dragon 2. I didn't see that one either.
And what were they talking about? How to Train Your Dragon 2?
Somebody was telling me that they really thought it was better than the first one.
Oh, that was me then, because I love that movie. I thought it was better than the first. I thought it was one of the best anime films I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love that movie. So, yeah, you definitely need to watch that.
Yeah, I've got to see both those, because so far my two favorites are Big Hero 6, which I absolutely adored.
Yes.
And The Book of Life, which I also absolutely adored. I loved the whole thing about that. That was just brilliant. What I'm amazed by is I'm sure there must have been another animated feature out there somewhere that was worthy of being nominated apart from The Box Trolls. That was the most abysmal film I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I was
absolutely horrid.
Neither of us were fans of that film, but it did. But I think visually it was good, so maybe for that reason and the fact that it was a stop motion, it earned its way on that list. But that's going to be a tough year, though. I think that the Lego Movie is going to probably take that home. I'm a huge fan of both both The Book of Life and How to Train Your Dragon 2. So that's a tough one in itself. All right, well, here's where the Golden Globes differ than the Academy Awards and most award shows. The Golden Globes splits their top categories into musical/comedy and drama. So there's Best Actress and Best Actor in Comedy Musical, and a Best Picture Comedy Musical, and then Best Actor, Best Picture, Best Actress for drama. So for comedy and musical, these next three are going to be for comedy and musicals. We have Best Performance by an Actor in a Comedy or Musical. We have Christoph Waltz for Big Eyes. We have Joaquin Phoenix for Inherent Vice. We have Bill Murray in St. Vincent. Michael Keaton in Birdman, and Ralph. I always mispronounce his last name. I want to say
Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes.
The Grand Budapest Hotel. Three films on here I've actually not have a chance to see, but I think that this one also tends to look like a shoo-in. Michael, did you see? Oh no, did you see St. Vincent?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what did you think about that film?
I really, really liked it. I remember turning to someone and saying, if Bill Murray doesn't get an Oscar nod for this, I will be amazed. He was absolutely brilliant. But then having said that, I also thought that Michael Keaton was flaming brilliant in Birdman.
Another year where we have, or another moment where we have someone that seems to be a favorite would be definitely Michael Keaton. I unfortunately missed St. Vincent, and there's a movie I really wanted to see, as I am a fan of Melissa McCarthy and Bill Murray, and one that I really want to watch. But
that was another one of those that was difficult. I almost had the feeling they did a screener almost as an afterthought. Mm-hmm. You know, it's one of those where, and you can always tell by the cinema it actually shows up in. And I won't mention any names because I don't want anybody to come knocking on my door and go, "Oi, asshole, what are you saying about my place?" But it's that sort of thing where the cinema it was showing at was not the best cinema in the world. You almost really wanted to sit there with your hand on your pepper spray or whatever while you were watching the film. If you know what I mean. Yeah. So it was like, obviously, they really had to think hard about doing a screener for that. And yet, it's the best thing I've seen Bill Murray in since Lost in Translation.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he absolutely knocked it out of the park.
That's another one I need to watch. We have Best Performance by an Actress in a Comedy or Musical. We have, I thought I knew how to pronounce her name until recently. But I believe it's Quazen Wallace for her performance in Annie.
Annie, yes.
We have Julianne Moore in Maps to the Stars, a film that I actually do not know much about, if anything.
First I've heard of it. Yeah, that's an odd one.
We have Helen Mirren for The 100-Foot Journey, which came out earlier this year as well. We have Emily Blunt in Into the Woods, and we have Amy Adams in Big Eyes.
Now, here you go. This is Big Eyes?
Yes.
A comedy?
This is true.
It's like, what the fudge are you people thinking? You know, obviously they were drinking something in their tea that they shouldn't have been to put that in a comedy or a musical. That's so random.
And Christoph Waltz was also nominated for Best Actor in that film for a musical, which I agree is very odd.
Yeah.
And but I think because they believe, you know, it is more of a lighter movie than a lot of the movies that we are watching.
And they haven't got a category called dramedy, so I guess you know that might be possibly where you could put it.
But Maps to the Stars, unfortunately, I've not heard very much about it. You know, Helen Mirren, 100-Foot Journey, it's a movie I unfortunately missed, and I really did want to watch. And Helen Mirren is also someone that is, you know, attracted to gold when it comes to awards and things like that.
And that was a delightful film as well.
Oh, so you saw that one too?
I did see that one, yeah. And again, that was another one of those that was in one of those manky little theaters that you don't really want to go to, but it was well worth it. And I actually, the night I saw it, because it's got a restaurant theme.
Yes, it is it's the story of an Indian restaurant opening up against a French cuisine that's been there for multiple years. And,
exactly. In France, even. So it's like one of those really quirky little thingies. It was really good. The young lady made me think of a young, never mind, doesn't matter. The point of it is, it was one of those where I sat down with a whole audience of caterers and cater college students. So it was quite an interesting thing to watch. Yeah, they were quite excited by the recipe. I don't think they really got off on the acting so much as what they were making in the film, but it was really a delightful film, and it's one of those. But again, it's that thing. Helen Mirren could have phoned that one in. She really could have done. You know, it was a great performance from her, but she always gives great performances. I haven't seen a woman do anything where she doesn't just absolutely shine.
Yeah. I think it's just so interesting that I feel like I've overdone myself when it comes to movie watching, and then I get these lists, and I'm like, I have so much more to watch. It's kind of scary.
Like, you've missed. Yeah.
Moving on to Best Motion Picture for a Comedy or Musical, we have St. Vincent, we have Pride, we have Into the Woods, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and Birdman. Now, Pride is another one that I haven't really heard much about off the top of my head. I can't even really think about what it is. So that, to me, is very interesting as well. It is from the British Film Institute and the British Broadcasting Corporation, but I don't know much about that one. St. Vincent, I missed. Missed the Grand Budapest Hotel, but I think also, again, this is one where we have one film that seems like it's going to probably pick up this award as well. So very.
Oh, this is annoying. Sorry, I just looked up Pride.
Yes.
Because that rang a bell, and I remember why it rings a bell. It has got the absolutely delightful Bill Nighy in it and Imelda Staunton. And it's one I saw a clip for ages ago and never saw it show up. I don't know if it's even opened in Las Vegas at all.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But Bill Nighy, the actor who plays Simon Pegg's dad in
Shaun of the
Dead, yes.
Yeah, and plays the in fact, I remember watching this and thinking I was the only person that picked up on it. But if you ever watch the commentary on Hot Fuzz, Bill Nighy has a cameo where he plays like the chief inspector of all the police people in the world. And Simon Pegg's character says, "You can't just make someone disappear, sir." And he goes, "Well, of course I can. I'm the chief inspector." And he does this little thing with his eyebrows that is just absolutely hysterically funny, but also is so typically Bill Nighy. Absolutely brilliant. And I would watch anything that man did. If someone filmed him reading his laundry list or his shopping list, I would watch it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it looks like it had limited release in September in the United States, and then was at the Portland Lesbian and Gay Film Festival in October. But it does not say a wide release for the United States, so we might not even have had access to that movie yet.
No, you can't even see it. And this is the other thing that's interesting. If you look on IMDb, they generally will say if it's available to stream anywhere, and it's not even available to stream anywhere.
Yeah. So that's another one that we might be having to find some way to watch. Yes. But very interesting. This is, again, it's very lovely to see films that not many people have seen on that list, because I'm sure a lot of people might not even know that name from the top of their head, just to even have heard about that, as well as the other one that we were talking about, Maps and Stars, or what it was called with Julianne Moore.
Maps to the Stars. Yeah. I've never heard of that.
But now we're going into the dramatic category for the last three, and then me and Mike will wrap up the podcast by reviewing Top 5 and Exodus. And I know we're going over our hour mark already, but we'll do our best to get to be quick. But there's so much to talk about that I don't, it's always fun. So we have Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture in the drama category. We have Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything. We have David Oyelowo for Selma. We have Jake Gyllenhaal for Nightcrawler. We have Benedict Cumberbatch for The Imitation Game, and Steve Carell for Foxcatcher. Now, you want to talk about one of the hardest categories of the year? Yeah. It's Best Actor. And some people weren't even thinking would be on this list. And it's going to be an incredibly tough year for this category. And I've seen 4 of the 5. 4 of the 5.
Same here.
We'll be on. We'll have 5 for 5 after this week, and we'll really have it. But I mean, this is going to be a really, really tough category. 4 of which are actors playing real life characters and recreating characters. We have the a man playing Alan Turing from the UK. We have a man playing Martin Luther King, and then we have Stephen Hawking, as well as the coach in Foxcatcher. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head.
I can't either. I can see.
I know it's like LaPointe or LaPointe, something like that along that line. But so that's a very interesting thought too. A lot of movies this year were definitely the more serious pictures that were nominated were all based off of some sort of real events. It seems to be like, but that's a category right now I can't even really discuss because of how close it is going to be. Though I will say Nightcrawler being nominated just makes me very, very happy because I adore that film. I thought it was incredible, and I was afraid that movie might have gotten the shaft and when it comes to the award season. So I hope that name sticks up there.
That's a tough one because I can tell you who my favorite is.
Yeah, I think I know.
Yeah, well, that's Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah,
he just completely. But I haven't seen Steve Carell yet, and I'm dying to see that. We're seeing that next week, I believe.
Yes, we're seeing that tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. Tomorrow, yeah. And I'm dying to see that because he is. I've seen Steve Carell play serious parts before, not very often, but he is a brilliant, serious actor. He's got some chops.
I totally agree.
I'm dying to see what he does.
He is an amazing, and I think, even in the film The Way, Way Back, which is classified as more of a comedy, is absolutely something about his performance that is kind of, maybe haunting is a bit too strong of a word, but there's something a bit scary of what this man is capable of, and just the way he was very emotionally abusive to this child.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, if you go back to Little Miss Sunshine, which is a great,
incredible
comedic film, he has one of the few serious roles in the film, and he touches you. His performance is so in depth and not chaotic. What's the word I want? Tragic, really. Yes. This poor chap that doesn't really fit in wherever world he's trying to go, and that's when I realized that Steve Carell can act, by God.
That film also introduced me to Paul Dano, who I also think killed it in that movie. He is incredible in that movie with, not saying much. He did an amazing job. He did.
And that film, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that film did make me a Paul Dano fan.
Yes. And
Abigail Breslin.
Yes, she did.
Oh, and she's grown up to
that whole film was really, really strong.
Just fantastic. Absolutely love it. And of course, Alan Alda. Yeah. Not Alan Alda, sorry. I'm not going to get his name right now. Never mind. Good old, what's his name? The old boy that played the granddad.
It's not... Who played the granddad? I'm trying to think.
And this is really annoying. He's a favorite actor of mine. I absolutely adore the man. I remember him in Freebie and the Bean, and absolutely realizing that he could do comedy so well. Where are you, mate? Alan Arkin.
Alan Arkin. There you go.
Alan Arkin. Yeah, because his son is also quite good as well. Yeah. But yeah, Alan Arkin, his granddad was just grandpa. Sorry, was absolutely brilliant.
Moving on to the last two categories for drama, we have best performance by an actress in motion picture, and one of these is also, I think, one of those ones we're going to be like, wait, what? Very interesting choice. We have Reese Witherspoon in Wild. We have Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl. We have Julianne Moore in Still Alice, and we have Felicity Jones at Theory of Everything, and Jennifer Aniston, Cake, which
I've not seen that.
I don't know if I've heard or seen anything on Cake, which is interesting.
I've seen it on IMDb. Believe it or not, that is the only place I've seen it. When you pull the main page up and you're getting ready to put in your search terms, it's shown up there. And I'm embarrassed to say I didn't even try and track it back to look at the trailer, because that's the only place I'd seen it mentioned.
Well, I'm on the IMDb page right now for it, and it says it won't be out in the United States. The USA, it could be out already somewhere, but until January 23rd. So maybe this is a movie that premiered at some festival, if any festival, possibly. One or two, and then wasn't going to be released in time, but still got that nomination. So a movie I'm very interested to see, but unfortunately doesn't look like I'll be watching it anytime soon, which is quite a shame. It's a limited release in December of USA. So it won't be wide release until January 23rd. So that's unfortunate, but the fact that she was nominated in this movie that people probably even know exists usually is a good thing. But
interesting, though. I do understand what you mean about this. Some that just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. that one definitely doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So, and the director of that film has an interesting filmography for as far as directing. He did Beastly, which is a film where they tried it with Vanessa Hudgens, and they try to recreate like a Beauty and the Beast type story. And he most recently did Won't Back Down, which is the story of a teacher and a parent, or two parents trying to change the school system. Was with Maggie Gyllenhaal and Viola Davis, who I'm a huge fan of. I love Viola Davis, but I did not see that one.
Snap, yeah.
So that one's going to be a tough one as well. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to see Still Alice unless a miracle happens in the next week or so. But hopefully, if we don't get to watch it before the year ends, we will be able to see it before these actual awards happen, which might actually happen. So
fingers crossed.
Yes. Last but not least, we have the best motion pictures for drama, and we have Boyhood. We have Foxcatcher, The Imitation Game, Selma, and The Theory of Everything. I mean, as much our jobs as critics, is to write about movies that are coming out and to inform people what they should be seeing. And, our job is to, really inform people about what's out and what's happening. And then, we have the luxury of having some voice in what is awarded and what we persuade people to think. And I think this is one of the strongest years I've ever seen as far as consistently phenomenal films. And I've yet myself, though as critics, we usually have a top 10 due, and we do have to report who we think deserves what award. I've yet to really kind of sit down and recreate my top 10 list after probably since October. I haven't really messed with it. And to see them finally boil down to 5 films, I mean, is just kind of crazy, because as much as these films are amazing, the only thing I can think about is, wow, how many are being left off here as well? It's an incredible race this year. And to see them boil down to these 5, one of which we've not seen, is just crazy stuff. And
I've actually not seen 2. I've not seen Boyhood either.
Yes. But hopefully, again, by the end of the week, me and Michael will be all caught up with everything. And so you'll have to listen to our predictions of what we think the Golden Globes will be a week before the 11th. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to see them boil down to those 5, to see them all kind of boiled down. What do you think about the category?
It's interesting that, again, it's sort of like what we saw in the Best Actors. They're all based either. Well, I say they're all based. All 4 of them are based on real things.
Yes.
And the other, the Boyhood, which is the one I think will be the odds-on favorite. Mm-hmm. And we had this conversation yesterday. I think it's gimmicky.
Yes.
And I think it's the very gimmicky of gimmick. It's that very thing that is going to make it,
make it powerful. Granted, it is a gimmick. It's something that people are talking about. But yet, when you see it, I think it becomes far more than just gimmicky. But again, you have to still watch it. And I know I have yet to see it. Though it might not be your favorite movie of the year, because there's been so many grades, I know you'll definitely love it. So that is it for you guys. Best Motion Picture Drama, again, is Boyhood, Foxcatcher, The Imitation Game, Selma, and The Theory of Everything. Get to your theaters now, or as quickly as possible, with these films before January 11th, when the 72nd Golden Globes is going to be presented.
And I can tell you, you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely not, because this is going to be awesome. And but make sure to tune into our podcast the week before. Well, tune into our podcast every week, but make sure to definitely tune into it the week before as we talk about who we think will be walking away with the Golden Globes. All right, now quickly moving into our reviews. That went a lot longer than I had expected, but I know you. No, sir, that was all me. But I know you enjoy listening to us, so it's not that big of a problem. Unfortunately, this week I had came down with something quite vicious of a stomach flu, so I missed the new Chris Rock film Top 5, which I have every intention of going to see when the opportunity is given. However, and people say, well, it's out. Why haven't you seen it? Well, because I'm watching at least 12 movies a week with everything else. So, I mean, when I get a moment to breathe, I will definitely track it down and watch it. But Michael, as he has in the past few times he's been on, reviewed a film I had not seen. So, Michael, please tell us what you thought about Chris Rock's new film, Top 5.
I really liked it. It had a great combination of people in it. Chris Rock, obviously. It had Rosario Dawson in it. Playing a slightly different part for a change, but to encapsulate what the film is like in a nutshell, it felt like an elongated Chris Rock routine. Although, having said that, in my review, I did point out that it is really Chris Rock's take on celebrity, on what it's like being a stand-up comic who is also an actor and who also has developed perhaps certain autobiographical problems that go along with it. It was incredibly funny. The audience got a huge kick out of it. And again, it had some cream of the crop people in it. Cedric the Entertainer was absolutely hysterically funny in it. But the person I want to give a huge shout to, the one that still impressed me no end, and that was Ben Vereen. The guy that all those years ago, perhaps when most of you weren't even born yet, came on television in Roots as Chicken George, absolutely knocking it out of the park. He had a cameo as Chris Rock's father in the film. The man just destroyed it. Absolutely brilliant. He still got them chops, bigger than life, and just really, really fantastic. But it was good. I mean, it had Gabrielle Union in it. The whole film, in a nutshell, is about a stand-up comic who has, through his career, turned his back on his comedy, turned his back on his roots. I don't want to overuse it, but that's what he's done. And now he's become an actor. But in his acting career, he's done this thing where he plays a bear called Hammy. And he's done a trilogy of films. His public adore it. And he's doing his first serious film. Unfortunately, his first serious film is a story of a bunch of Haitian slaves in Haiti, or Haiti, however you say it, who actually murdered something like 50,000 people on the screen. All white people, I should hasten to mention. But the thing of it is, it's not going over well at all. So he's doing all these interviews, and it's basically look back over his time as his career in this thing, and it is very funny and quite touching in some places, but mostly very funny.
And remember, you can always read all of Michael's reviews at mikesfilmtalk.com, and you can check him out also on the Guardian Liberty Voices website, and that's guardianlv.com. And, of course, follow him on Twitter at Mike's Film Talk. Yeah, you know, I've heard a lot of great things about this film. I'm not sure where it was standing, but I know before it came out, it was sitting at a 90% or so on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
I heard that it was, you know, Chris Rock's comeback and his way of really kind of talking about a lot of social things going on. I am a fan of Chris Rock's comedy.
Yes.
And his stand-up, and, you know, very interested in seeing this. I know there's a lot of cameos, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Not right now, but previous in the conversation we've had.
Yeah.
So it's a definite film that I'm looking forward to watching. So the film came out just this Friday.
Yeah.
So make sure to go see it. Again, that is top 5 Chris Rock's new film. And make sure to read Michael's review at mikesfilmtalk.com. Now, also this week, on the total opposite spectrum of a comedy, we have a film about Moses. And as we talked about earlier, we had earlier this year Darren Aronofsky's Noah, which a film that I really, really enjoyed, though it didn't really follow the biblical the biblical story so closely. It was actually based off of a graphic novel, you know, that was done, that wasn't, you know, obviously directly from the Bible. Excuse me. And a film that I enjoyed very much because the film really emphasized about this journey. I mean, everyone really kind of knows about Noah's Ark and what happened, but no one ever really told us about Noah and how Noah was handling all of these things, at least not to my recollection. So I really enjoyed that film. I think Russell Crowe did a phenomenal job in his performance. I think everything about that movie was really enjoyable. And actually, earlier this year in June, it was my number 5 favorite film of the year so far.
Wow.
Yeah, it was one of my, it was definitely, well, and that was until, you know, summer hit and we had a bunch of great films, a run of great films. And then we got hit with a bazillion in the last couple of years. So Exodus, Gods and Kings, is really Scott's version of the story of Moses and him leading his people out past the Red Sea, and, you know, the story that we've seen from in Charlton Heston's 10 Commandments. Ridley Scott, who unfortunately lost his brother, you know, was dedicating this film to his brother.
Yes.
And this is, I believe, is this his first film since Prometheus? I think
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I know he's been doing great production on other stuff, but this is actually the first one he's actually done and finished since Prometheus.
Which I was a big fan of. Did you like Prometheus?
I liked Prometheus. It wasn't
really
what I thought it was going to be, but it was still quite good. And the only thing that annoyed me about Prometheus was he kept insisting it was not a sequel or a prequel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's got to be one or the other, mate, because, you know, there's things we've mentioned before. But there you go. That's just neither here nor there.
But to quickly break my review down of Exodus, Gods and Kings, you know, this movie to me was just something that wasn't going to work from the get-go, because I think a lot of the problems lied in the script and how everything was written. I am a huge fan of Christian Bale. I think the man is one of the most talented working men in Hollywood. I know Michael isn't as big as a fan as I am.
No.
Which is all right, which I don't understand why, because I think the man is an incredible actor. But not even himself can save some of the words that they're spewing out, as I feel like I am watching a bunch of theater students in a play, and I don't mean to be disrespectful about that, but that's exactly how it reads. You know, I feel like people are in costumes and we're reading lines, and that's a major problem. I don't think the film really cared about what was going on. I think it criminally underused a lot of the performers in it as well. You have someone the likes of Aaron Paul, Sigourney Weaver, Ben Kingsley, and Christian Bale, and well, if we don't count Christian Bale for Michael's sake, that's really says something. I think Sigourney Weaver maybe had 5 lines, if that.
I was going to say 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't even. Yeah. I mean, at first thought I was like, she didn't say anything, but she maybe said 3 lines. Aaron Paul, who doesn't really say much either. No, it's just. I think to me is just a criminal mistake, because you could have really had something powerful there. Joel Edgerton, who played the opposite of Christian Bale, I really didn't like. I feel like he was really miscast in this role. He felt like he was just a. What's the phrase? Something out of place. He was just whatever. He just didn't belong in this. He
was like an anachronistic.
Yeah, very.
There, yeah.
And he didn't give me the feeling of some of the powerful. But I mean, I just really disliked this movie. I felt the whole thing was just kind of off from the get go. Really majorly affecting its speaking just with script and just how everyone was performing. I thought a lot of it was also very anticlimactic, and for being 2 hours, it felt like a very, very long time. I think you know, obviously to try to not necessarily like directly remake 10 Commandments, but when you take on a project like that, you have to come out with everything you got, and this movie felt to me kind of lazy. So pretty disappointed. Michael, what did you think about Exodus: Gods and Kings?
I'm kind of along the lines with you. I felt like a lot of the big names that they brought in were very, as you just said, criminally underused. When I first saw Sigourney Weaver, I was sitting there going, is that Sigourney Weaver? I'll wait a minute. She'll say something here in a minute. And I'll be able to tell for certain, because she has that voice I'm going to recognize. I sat there and waited for half an hour for her to open her gob and say something. And then it was like 3 lines. I'm like, okay, yeah, why did you bring her on? Exactly, or did she want to be in this thing or whatever? The whole thing didn't work for me because, again, I have liked Christian Bale in some things, but the main problem I had with him in this was it was like, I am Moses. You know, it was like Batman does Moses. You know, his Moses, it was very, you know, angsty and tortured, you know, kind of like every part Christian Bale has ever played. The marketing for it has really emphasized that as well. They don't actually show that. There are parts in the film where he is quite reflective, but it's Christian Bale reflective. So it's like Batman reflective and not real reflective. It doesn't really fit. So it's like, you know, I'm just not feeling it here. The thing that bothered me the most was the fact that they made God a child, which just annoyed me no end. They took the whole burning bush thing and used it as like, we're going to use the burning bush not to have God talk out of it like it says he did in the Bible.
Yes.
We're going to use it to get Moses' attention and then have this little kid show up. And it's like, okay, you know, obviously somebody was a huge Ray Bradbury fan when they were a kid, because Bradbury always had God as like either an insane person or a child or whatever, you know, in Star Trek. So that sort of threw me. They also had this quite odd fixation with a couple of the 10 plagues of Egypt, or 12 plagues, however many it was. It was a lot of plagues. Mm-hmm. And the one where the water turns blood red, they had that happen because it was actually blood caused by giant crocodiles eating everything. And I thought, okay, that's rather novel. I don't remember reading that anywhere in there. And the other one was the parting of the Red Sea wasn't a parting at all.
Yeah,
it was like, you know, we're just going to move everything over here to the
left.
right.
Yeah, right.
or left, or whatever. Yeah. It wasn't a parting. And the other thing, again, that was really annoying was when the sea rushed back, all these hundreds of thousands of Egyptian soldiers die instantaneously when the water hits them, except for Moses and his brother, Joel Edgerton. And I'm like, wow, these guys really were great leaders. They're the only ones that managed to survive the Red Sea coming back over and not drowning. Little touches like that just really took the movie outside of the realms of it. I am very proud of Scott for actually being brave enough to mention God's name and to say that actually God was the one kind of in charge of the whole thing, because Aronofsky skirted around all that as much as he possibly could, with Noah's story. So, yeah, I give him big bonuses for that. But no, it was a disappointing film. It was like he was trying to, and I've said it before, he was being David Lean with the Bible.
I think that, to talk about the parting Red Sea is a really major flaw in this movie. Not because it's not, oh, well, that's not what the Bible said, type thing, but because it is a moment where I think audiences are expecting that from his character. I think that's a very pivotal point for his character, and for audiences to see that, to see the sea, I'm sorry, not the ocean, and really kind of wait for that moment of him to strike down his staff and spread the sea, regardless if, we wanted to make it different or not. I think that's just a very pivotal moment for his character, and for them not to have any explanation of why it's not shown or just kind of, and you know what, it really feels like it's just happening. It doesn't feel like that moment where everyone knows, oh, Moses part of the Red Sea. It's just like this just so happened to be happening when these guys were crossing. And I think to me that was really a sufferable thing for it. Not only is the movie, because I think it's going to leave a lot of people disappointed and confused, but just his character in general, where he has that defining moment of this, I am their leader. I will lead these people. And though it obviously leads them to this point in general, that's a really defining moment of a character. And to not mention that, I think is kind of just hurtful.
But they did the whole thing that way. I mean,
when
you look, as I said at the cinema, I can't remember if we actually watched this at the same time or not.
We did.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. I was saying the thing that disappointed me a lot, and it was sort of indicative of how they treated the whole story, was there was no scene in there where Moses throws his staff down. It's basically a face-off between him and the wizards of the Pharaoh, the magicians, and they turn their staffs into snakes. And Moses says basically, well, look, my God's better than your God. Watch this. And he throws his staff down. It turns into a big snake and it eats all the other snakes. And they didn't put that in the film, which really disappointed me, because I always thought that was really probably the coolest part of the whole story as a kid. But the point being, they took all of that out, where he actually sits down and says to the chap, look, if you don't do this, God's going to come in and he's going to do all these bad things, and I'm going to give you one last chance. He didn't do any of that. The only time he actually came to see him was not in public, wasn't in the court, wasn't around everyone else. It was him sneaking in going, something really bad's going to happen and I can't do anything. Yeah. Well, it's like when they put that in there, I was like, well, actually, Moses, you haven't been able to do anything about any of it. It's not you, it was God, and Moses said that from the very get-go. This whole thing made it about, this mysterious stuff going on that Moses was taking all the credit for until the last minute. Mm-hmm. And when it got really bad, he was like, oh, this has nothing to do with me, mate. Yeah. It was like,
the movie just didn't have a flow or didn't really just kind of feel like it was telling the right story. Just from a perspective that I don't think people are going to be interested to seeing it from. But you could always read our review to get more detail at mikesfilmtalk.com, or read our review, my review at chasingcinema.com/Exodus Gods and Kings. Michael, I want to thank you so much for taking up probably way more time than you had planned to sitting down and talking to me. As always, I appreciate it. Guys, I wouldn't be shocked if I were you if Michael returns for the next week or two, because unfortunately Louis has missed a great portion of these films that we're going to be talking about, and me and Michael have seen pretty much all of them. So don't be shocked if Michael returns next week. If I could convince him to, after I kept him way longer than planned.
Which again was partly my fault.
No, sir. It's always a pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much. Guys, follow this man now on Twitter. He has so much stuff that you could read. I mean, it's insane. And he covers a plethora of entertainment. Mike'sFilmTalk.com. Follow him on Twitter at Mike'sFilmTalk, or just go read some of his stuff at the Guardian Liberty Voices website.
And you also connect with me on Facebook now.
Oh, okay. Yes. Facebook.com/Mike'sFilmTalk, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Make sure to follow, like him on Facebook as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the 134th episode of ChasingCinema.com. As always, I am Jacob Toronto, and please continue chasing cinema.